Clinic, Taylorville.
Lifestyle medicine is about motivating you to improve your quality of life by changing habits and behaviors.
Find out more by clicking Dr. Gill's icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM. Good morning, Central Illinois, and welcome to the WTIM Morning Show on your information station. The show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Reed Kamai. Good to be back in the studio after a couple days on the road. And for our first segment today, we're talking all about dairy, and who better to talk about that with than someone from the St. Louis District Dairy Council. And I'm talking more specifically about Monica Nyman, a senior nutrition educator with the St. Louis Dairy Council. And if I've pressed everything correctly, Monica, you should be on over the phone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
It is a pleasure to have you on. And, in terms of dairy, talk about first just why it's important for folks at home to kind of rely on dairy foods when they're cooking at home or making whatever it is they're making.
Sure. Well, when we talk about food, we always want to have things that give us a lot of really great nutrition. And just last month, the dietary guidelines, the 2030 dietary guidelines just came out. And don't worry, we're going to focus an entire section on that next month. But they still continue to recommend 3 servings of dairy every single day for individuals. So whether you're cooking or you're baking, if you're adding dairy to those specific recipes, it really does help you get in some really good nutrition. One thing I love about the dairy food group is that it combines really well with other foods. So if you think about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean meats, all of those foods that we always recommend as dietitians, the dairy food group pairs really well with that. And because of that, you can really build a really varied plate. And dairy is can always be a part of that combination. So when it comes to milk, whether you're drinking it with your meal or you're adding it into a recipe, it's always going to give you 13 different types of nutrients that are really important for everyday function. A couple of those are protein, calcium, potassium, B vitamins, all kinds of stuff in your milk. But other dairy foods like yogurt and cheese, those are also excellent sources of calcium and protein. And then yogurt specifically is a fermented food. So it gives you lots of really healthy bacteria that help support kind of your overall digestive system. So we know that consuming these calcium-rich dairy foods, they help build and support your bone mass, and that's something that people kind of forget about every once in a while. You have to do that throughout your entire life. And then protein is another buzzword in nutrition. It's part of the dietary guidelines. Every cup of milk gives you 8 grams. In the yogurt section, you can get up to about 23 grams of protein by choosing Greek yogurt. And then cheese, it kind of varies depending on what kind it is, but it can give you between 6 and 11 grams of protein. And that's important because it helps to maintain our muscle mass. It provides lots of energy, and it can help you stay fuller longer as well if you include it with different meals and snacks. So lots of nutrition when it comes to those dairy foods when you're cooking at home, making recipes, and planning your meals.
No, I love that. And like you mentioned how well it combines with other foods, right? Like if you have cereal, with you put milk in it with cooking certain meats. I know actually sometimes, like if I add, egg to the outside, like if I crack open an egg and then, add that in, there's also milk mixed in. So I like how you mentioned that it combines so well. I do have a question. You mentioned 23 grams of protein for Greek yogurt. What about Greek yogurt compared to, more traditional kind of Western yogurt makes it so protein rich?
So it's the way that it's made. Greek yogurt is really thick. And actually, I've recently tried some new Greek yogurts in the grocery store that have been really thick, almost a little bit too thick for me. But they strain out some of that liquid that is in your more traditional regular yogurt. It has a more liquidy consistency, and that concentrates the amount of protein that is in the Greek yogurt. So it's definitely thicker. Look at your labels, though, because I've seen some Greek yogurts at the store that only have about you know, 8 or 9 grams of protein, but then there's a lot of other ones that have more like 17, 20, 24. So definitely make sure that you're looking at your food label because not all Greek yogurt offers the same amount of protein.
Interesting. I did not know about how that worked, but that's why we have Monica Nyman with the St. Louis District Dairy Council with us this morning. So, you mentioned some of the dairy foods and drinks or products. I should say more broadly. So, you go to a grocery store. The dairy section is going to be pretty large, and I bet a lot of us don't think about what all is there aside from whatever's on our shopping list. So, what are the options that people would find at a traditional grocery store?
Right. So, and there's a wide variety of dairy foods when you're in the dairy case. But one thing that I find is that some of these products keep changing, or they'll make one and then they stop making it, or they'll add something else. And so I always kind of check out the dairy section in all grocery stores when I'm going around just to see what kind of products they're offering. So that's something that you can do as well, is just kind of take a look and see what is available to you. But from the milk perspective, there's lots of different varieties of milk. Of course, you have your fat-free 1%, 2%, whole milk, flavored milks that come in all of those different varieties. And don't forget about lactose-free milk, which is a really great choice for anyone who has lactose intolerance or some sort of uncomfortable symptoms when they're drinking milk. That's an excellent choice to be able to still get all of those vitamins and minerals that I just mentioned coming from your milk options. I mentioned yogurt, lots and lots of varieties. You can get traditional yogurt, which I mentioned is a little bit thinner. The Greek yogurt, super thick. There's an Australian yogurt. There's kefir, that's kind of a drinkable yogurt that has lots of healthy bacteria in it. All of those range from fat-free all the way up to whole milk. So some people like that taste, or they're looking for the extra calories in that. Plain, flavored. Again, look at your labels. A couple things that I like to mention about the label when it comes to yogurt, again, is the protein. But also the calories and the fat content. So, depending on what you're looking for, you're going to be able to find some type of choice in that yogurt section. When it comes to cheeses, there are actually over 600 variety of cheeses that are made in the United States. So whether it's fresh cheese, like just a cottage cheese, to a well-aged cheddar, maybe a Parmesan, where it has a really hard consistency that you have to actually grate or shave. Every cheese has a different flavor profile and texture. And so this is where you can really be creative with your recipes. If it calls for a certain type of cheese, but you only have pepper jack in the refrigerator, you can always swap that out. So it makes really tasty dishes. And, again, you can always find the right dairy option in the grocery store because there is so many things to pick from.
Man, I reckon I'll be checking out the dairy section a little more closely the next time I do my grocery shopping, because there's a lot there and a lot to take in for health related purposes, and I love dairy in general as well. So so you talk about like incorporating dairy into our meals. How does making our own meals kind of help with our health goals, our nutrition goals, and all of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of research out there that shows that making your own meals at home, it has so many benefits. I'm just going to talk about a few of those today, but it increases the quality of the food that you're serving, and it's also more affordable. And so those are really two important things, I think, just in general. You're able to eat healthier, and it's also going to cost you less than going out and buying your food from a restaurant. So when you make your own food, you know exactly what the ingredients are. I always tell people this, you can always make swaps. You can take a look at that recipe. If you don't like this or that ingredient, or maybe you want to add some extra fiber, you can add to it. You can delete from it. You can kind of modify it to meet your taste, but also your nutrition goals. The other thing is, if you're eating at home, you're likely to eat more fruits and vegetables. So I try to serve those with almost every single meal. We always have fruit with our meals, but I also have been trying to add more vegetables. Whether it's stir fried or fresh with dips at the dinner table. And people eat less fried foods when they're at home. I don't know about you, but I don't even have a deep fat fryer at my house.
Neither do I.
When you go to a restaurant, it's really easy to pick those foods that are just dropped right down into the fryer. Those have so many calories in them, plus a lot of really bad fat calories. So we just typically eat less fried foods when we are eating at home. So the other spin on this that I find this really fascinating, but creating meals with others. So if you have your kids in the kitchen kind of helping you and helping prep, or your husband or your wife, it really provides opportunities for relationship building. There's a lot of research out there on this. So kids who help with meals, it helps them learn to kind of take on some responsibility. They're learning some key life skills of trying to cook and learn how to do that with their parents. And it also shows that it increases their academic achievement, their self-esteem, and their resilience. And I find that fascinating. So if you have kids at home, get them in the kitchen. It is teaching them more than just a few little skills about how to cook.
Oh, that's lovely that you note that. And I would imagine that self-esteem and resilience, it probably comes from the trial and error of cooking. Sometimes things don't go right, and then you kind of learn from there. And I suppose you'd rather learn as a child than as an adult, like I have on many occasions with that. Is that kind of where they're coming from with the research?
Yeah. And also, I think just really conversations with your parents. So kind of building up their self-esteem and saying, okay, this is, let's try it a different way, and just kind of mentoring them a little bit. So it is really fascinating to me. There's additional things that are learned when you bring your kids into the kitchen, and skills for them as far as their behavior and their social environment, and how it, reduces the amount of, smoking and drug use. And I just think it's just building relationships with your family, and a lot of core values start at home. And I think we've moved away from that a little bit. And so kind of trying to bring that back into the home, again, just provides a lot of positive benefits for your kids.
And that is Monica Nyman, a senior nutrition educator with the St. Louis Dairy Council. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some more practical tips about how to incorporate dairy into our meals at home. And so we'll have that coming up in just a few minutes, right here on the WTIM Morning Show on your information station.
Your information station, WTIM.
The Taylorville Tornadoes are on WTIM. Listen on air or online for all football, boys basketball, and playoff games of both teams on AM, FM, and streamed on the WTIM mobile app. Sponsored by McClure Halberg Insurance, Prairie Farms Dairy, the senior citizens of Christian County, and Taylorville Community Eye Care.
Purple and gold are coming your way. The Taylorville Tornadoes are going to do it today.
If you're like most people, finding extra money for your savings just doesn't happen. Hi, this is Julie Sanchez at People's Bank and Trust, and we have the solution you've been looking for. Sign up for our Save by Spendings Roundup program, and we'll round up your purchases to the next dollar, then transfer that change to your savings account. It's as easy as shop, enjoy, and save. Start saving for the things you really want with our Save by Spending Roundup program. Call 888-PBT-1954 and let us put you and your savings first. People's Bank and Trust, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Hi, this is Jeremy Pyatt with Kaufman Realty and Auction, and we are back with another gun and ammo auction online and open for bidding now at localgunauction.com. Available in this auction are more than 50 firearms, plus a large selection of ammo and calibers such as .223, 30-06, 45, and 9mm, and many more. We also have some military memorabilia and several lots of gold and silver coins. So get on over to localgunauction.com to sign up and start bidding on this great auction.
Double your impact with sight and sound. Reach customers through our 6 regional radio stations, plus capture their attention with our 36 by 72-inch digital billboard right on Route 29 in Taylorville. That's nearly 11,000 drivers seeing your message every single day while they're already listening to your radio ads. Ready to maximize your reach? Call your regional radio account manager today and put your business in front of eyes and ears across Central Illinois. Regional radio is where your message gets noticed.
Hey there, loyal listeners. This is your team at Regional Radio with a quick heads up. Some of the great programming you enjoy throughout the day is pre-recorded, but don't worry. We're still bringing you the same local content you love. Our legal team insisted we mention this, and hey, keeping the attorneys happy keeps us on the air. So thanks for tuning in and being part of the Regional Radio family. We're proud to bring local, compelling content to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
With over 8 hours a day of agriculture programming weekdays and 2 hours on Saturdays, WTIM AM, FM, and online is your ag information station. Listen by tuning in on air or online, and listen to WTIM Ag podcasts anytime.
At First National Bank in Taylorville, switching banks isn't a hassle. It's easy by real people who care. Find out why they've been first every time for over 70 years by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM.
And we're back on the WTIM Morning Show on your information station. The show is sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm Reed Kama, and I continue my conversation with Monica Nyman. She is a senior nutrition educator with the St. Louis District Dairy Council, and we've been focusing this interview on, well, dairy and on the whys of dairy. I think now is a good time to get into the hows of dairy in terms of some easy ways to make a meal with dairy foods. And Monica, what do you have to share about that?
Sure. So just starting off with breakfast, you can always add cheese and, believe it or not, cottage cheese to your scrambled eggs. That not only adds some flavor, but it boosts up the protein that you're getting first thing in the morning. Milk is also a really important ingredient if you're making pancakes or waffle batter. And I always tell parents, just keep it simple for dinner. Your kids love scrambled eggs, maybe some fried potatoes and some fruit with a cup of milk on the side for maybe a really busy weeknight. You know, you can make a simple meal just using breakfast foods for dinner. So I do that pretty regularly at my house. So this time of year, of course, it's still still cold out. We want some warm, comforting foods. So lots of soups have milk as an ingredient because it makes them a little bit creamier. You can use whatever version you want to. Don't forget, if you have lactose intolerance in your house, just buy that lactose-free milk and swap that in your recipe. And that really helps for those who are lactose intolerant be able to have, like a potato soup or a creamy tomato. Those are both recipes that use quite a bit of milk as a base ingredient. When it comes to pasta, a milk-based sauce adds nutrition and flavor, like an Alfredo. A chicken Alfredo is kind of a good example of that. But a lot of casseroles do have milk added to them. And also baked goods. They benefit from the addition of either milk or yogurt. Both add moisture and some nutrition. And then this month's recipe falls sort of into this baked goods category, along with a breakfast food that's served pretty easy in the morning.
Yeah, no, I like that in terms of how to incorporate that. I'll tell you what, Monica, we've got about 2 minutes left. Why don't you talk a little bit more about the recipe of the month, this baked oatmeal with yogurt? I'm salivating already.
Yeah, this is a wonderful. If you've heard my interviews before, I kind of like to batch cook where I can just heat things up easily. So this is a perfect recipe for that. It's a baked oatmeal. Instead of having a granola bar, as a breakfast or a snack, this is an alternative that is very filling and nutritious. It takes about 5 minutes to put together. It only requires one bowl. It takes about 35 minutes to bake. It combines milk with oatmeal, a little bit of brown sugar, cinnamon, and nutmeg. You're adding in a little bit of apples and applesauce and some chia seeds. So it's really delicious served warm. You can put a little bit of Greek yogurt on top of that and add a little extra protein. So this recipe is rich in protein and fiber. You can make it ahead of time, cut it into squares, pop it in the microwave in the morning. So it just really helps. It's a convenient kind of grab and go option first thing in the morning. Breakfast is a really important meal, and this is going to start your morning off right. So it's called baked oatmeal, and you can find this recipe on our website.
Yeah, and I've got the copy of the recipe in front of me. The 35 minutes baked part of it was at first reading it a little bit of a turnoff because we don't have a whole lot of time at the start of the morning. But then you mentioned something that you're able to freeze and save for later. Then you've got it prepared right there in the morning. So then you don't have to rush to put that together. So all about dairy this morning. That's been the conversation with Monica Nyman, a senior nutrition educator with the St. Louis Dairy Council. Monica, thanks so much again for coming on.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Oh, thank you. You as well. And we certainly will. We've got a couple more conversations coming up here on the WTIM Morning Show, sponsored by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. So stay tuned for that. That next one will be coming up in about 10 minutes. This, of course, is the WTIM Morning Show on your information station.
The Big 870 WTIM Assumption Taylorville. 96.1 FM Taylorville. 107.